What is going on, everyone? Thank you so much for coming back today. Thank you so much for taking time out today just to click on today's video. I greatly appreciate it. Today we're going to be exploring the curse of the Poltergeist. The Poltergeist is one of those movies that literally scared the shit out of me as a kid. Now, this movie came out 2 years before I was even born, so my parents let me watch this movie at a very young age. Thanks, Mom and Dad. The movie came out in 1982. Now, it was produced by Steven Spielberg, but there's a lot of controversy going around about this movie that Spielberg actually secretly directed the Poltergeist because he was in contract with E.T. He was directing E.T. at the moment, and he could not direct another project. So he was a very hands-on producer whenever it came to the Poltergeist. And if you watch it, there is a lot of Spielberg-esque kind of stuff sprinkled in through the Poltergeist. Poltergeist follows a middle-class family who's living in California whenever their house begins to experience some paranormal events happening. They find out that the portal to hell is in Carol Ann, their 6-year-old daughter's bedroom closet. Carol Ann is abducted by these group of demons who follow the beast, and now they must try to get her back. Fun fact is Stephen King was actually approached to write the script of Poltergeist. Now, Spielberg already had 11 pages already done, and when they approached King, they wanted to add a little bit more of the horror factor into the movie. But when it came down to it, King was just asking for way too much money, so they had to back out of that deal. So that would have been kind of crazy to have Stephen King kind of intertwined in the Poltergeist. But you may be asking yourself, alright, this movie has Steven Spielberg, it has a great cast, has a great storyline. How in the hell is this movie cursed? Well, let's get into it today, and I want to hear from you guys. Drop me a comment down below. It doesn't really hold up as well today because there is a lot of stuff that if you go back and watch it now, you're like, that's kind of cheesy. But back in the 80s, scared the shit out of me. It was a scary movie. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you believe that the Poltergeist is cursed? Let's get into it. Let's not waste any more time. JoBeth Williams actually came out and said that Spielberg used real skeletons, which is crazy to think about, that they used real human skeleton remains in Poltergeist. But the scenes are very in the movie whenever the house is starting to collapse and she's in the swimming pool in the backyard and everything's starting to come up and unravel. Those are real skeletons. Those are real dead people, which is terrifying to think about, and that's where they think that a lot of the curses started to happen, is that Spielberg used real skeletons on the set. At the time he said that plastic skeletons just cost way too much money, so let's just use real ones. It is kind of crazy to think about if it is true about the curse of the Poltergeist, that all this was started over just a production cost, which is kind of crazy to think about. But this just isn't about the first Poltergeist. There is part 2 and part 3 that experienced other things as well. Now, there was an exorcism performed on Poltergeist 2. Now, this was performed by Will Sampson. He was the Native American actor in part 2. He went in on set after everyone had left, and he performed this exorcism. And, the cast and crew said the next day that they could feel it was much easier to breathe. It was much better. It felt a lot better on set. Now, the rest of the story doesn't get any better at all. The rest of the story is about sad and tragic deaths that happened to the cast and crew. But before I get into the tragic deaths of the cast and crew, I need to talk about Richard Lawson. Now, he played Ryan on Poltergeist. His Flight 405 actually crashed into the Flushing Bay in March 1992. Now, 27 members aboard out of 51 actually died in the plane crash. Richard Lawson actually survived, which is kind of crazy to think about, that he survived a plane crash. Now, the rest of the way out, it's going to be pretty much tragic news. It's going to be deaths of the cast and crew that happened. But in 2009, we had Lou Pearlman, who had a very small role. He played Pugsley in the original film. Now, he was 67 years old when this happened, but he actually had came home, and an escaped convict was inside of his house and actually brutally killed him with an axe. I don't know about deaths, but I think getting killed with an axe or a chainsaw would possibly be one of my worst deaths of getting killed. That terrifies the living crap out of me. Next up, we have Julian Beck, who played Kane in Poltergeist 2. Now, whenever shooting for Poltergeist 2 started to take place, Beck was completely healthy. As the shooting was going along, he found out that he had stomach cancer. And so, it was a short amount of time whenever the part 2 had wrapped up. It wasn't very long that he succumbed to his stomach cancer, which is very sad to think about. Next one you can't really say is going to be a curse, but Will Sampson, the guy who played the Native American, he needed a heart and lung transplant at the same time. It was a very risky surgery anyway. The survival rate is very low, but Sampson had the surgery done, and he actually passed away on the operating table, which I know you can't really include that as part of maybe a curse, but it's just a strange coincidence that he passed away. Next up, I'm going to talk about the two that I think are probably the saddest of the whole story. You have Dominique Dunne, who played Dana, the older sister. Now, she was dating this guy named John Sweeney. They had actually broke up. John Sweeney had went to her house one night and was just begging and pleading for her to get back with him. Whenever she told him no, Sweeney proceeded to choke her to death and left her for dead in her Hollywood driveway, and when she was found the next day. Sweeney was actually only sentenced to 6 years in prison, and he only had to serve 3 years, and he got out on good behavior, which is absolutely blows my mind that happened, that he could kill someone and only serve 3 years in prison. Last up, and I think the saddest, we have Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann. Now, O'Rourke was only 7 years old when she was cast to be in The Poltergeist. Shortly after The Poltergeist, she was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease. She was misdiagnosed with this disease, and they were treating that, but really all she had was a bowel obstruction. But in 1987, she fell ill, and she had flu-like symptoms where she actually collapsed and experienced a cardiac arrest. She was rushed to the hospital where they tried to perform emergency surgery, and they just couldn't save her. But later on, it was determined, the autopsy determined that it was just a bowel obstruction that she had, which I think could have easily been fixed. But she was only 12 years old when she passed away. But that's what I have for you guys today. That is my story. That is the curse of the Poltergeist. Tell me your thoughts. Do you think the curse of Poltergeist is a real thing? I'm curious to hear from you guys. But for me, there's too many weird things to happen for you to not say this movie is cursed in some way or some form. I don't know. But in my heart, I believe this movie is cursed. There's too many things that happen. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Drop me a comment down below. Tell me what you thought. Tell me how bad Poltergeist scared the shit out of you as a kid. I'm curious to hear from you guys. But that's all I have for you guys today. But before you leave, you wouldn't mind helping me out tremendously. Hit the thumbs up button down below. If you're not a subscriber, you can quickly become one. Hit the little subscribe button, and then out beside that, hit that little bell notification and select all. And then YouTube will send you a nice little notification whenever I upload a new video. But that's all I have for you guys today. I love you. Mom, I love you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, guys. Hey, if you want to watch another video, click here. If you want to subscribe, click over here. As always, thanks for watching, guys.